Hello, I'm Alyssa, I write books, and this is a Q&A. I don't know how to do these at all. I just sat down and turned on my camera without looking at the questions or watching any other Q&A videos to see how these are done, but that's what we're doing. This is a Q&A for 1,000 subscribers, so thank you again if you're subscribed. If you're not, there's still time. I started this channel like a year and a couple months ago. Like in February of 2023. And so it was kind of my goal to hit the 1,000 point within a year, which I know is very, like, such an arbitrary goal because you just don't know how YouTube works. Or I didn't anyway. And I know that there's channels that like have great content and struggle to get engagement. I don't know. So that was what my hope was. I also had a friend at the time. She's still my friend. We're still friends. We started our channels on the same day. Her first video went crazy viral. She's at like 20,000 subscribers right now. It's insane. It's a chess channel. Check out Cameron if you want chess content. She does like educational chess content. It's insane. Let's start with an easy one. Natalie Jane Shields asks, what is my day job? So I am a videographer. I went to school for like media production and media production, but all my classes were in film. And I worked for a video tech startup for a couple years. It was a lot. And so in October, I left that job and now I work as the videographer for a college in town. So I do all the like, come to our school, we're great kind of videos. So do have a little bit of an advantage in terms of editing videos quickly. That's kind of what the video tech startup was focused on, was like efficiency, fast. If you're wondering, like, Alyssa, didn't you finish filming that video at 9 p.m. and it's up the next morning? Yeah. Anna Robbins asks, what are my favorite tropes to read and to write? So it's actually funny. I feel like I read very differently than how I write. I read mostly like fantasy and contemporary romance, rom-com, lit fic. I really do read just about everything though. What tropes do I like? I mean, in romance specifically, I like there to be some deeper literary element to it. So like Abby Jimenez's books is a good example of that, where there's some other deeper problem, not just like, oh, we like each other. I am such a fan of fake dating. Always put me in every time, except when it's done poorly, but like that's any trope. I also enjoy, I don't know if this is a trope. I just like kidnapping people. That sounded wrong. I don't personally kidnap anyone. Just that I clarify that, I guess. But when there is specifically in a fantasy, I need someone to get kidnapped. It is a requirement. That seems violent and horrible, but it's not that I like the kidnapping itself. I just like every trope that usually comes from kidnapping. Like if it's one of the main characters kidnapped and the other main character's like, where is my wife? Like, put me in I'm gonna cry. Okay. Like it just brings out the best emotions. And I also am such a sucker for reunions in books. If there is a kidnapping and not a good reunion, I am livid about it. Don't even talk to me about House of Flame and Shadow. I don't want to talk about it as a reunion lover, okay? Pretty much anything that happens in the Prison Healer trilogy, anything written by Lynette Noni, I don't know, that's not a trope. But truly, every book I read of hers, I'm like, you did exactly what I want you to do every single time. And it's not what everybody wants to happen in a book. She just knows exactly what I want to happen in a book and makes it happen. And I love it every second. Like there to be some sort of romance. I also love like when there are children, like a single dad or a single mom, or like, oh, you're an older brother, but you take care of the sibling. Like, put me in every time. I love it. Scarlett has 4 questions. So, do I remember when I first realized that I loved writing and that I wanted to pursue it as more than a hobby? This is a good question. So I started writing, I mean, I've always, in my head, I've been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a writer. Like I've always just thought that. I don't know why. I don't know where that started. But I remember the first book I wrote seriously was in like 7th grade, and it was actually so violent and horrible. I did make a video about every book I've ever written, so if you want to check that out, I'll card it maybe. Just kind of go hard with a lot of things. Shockingly enough, like every hobby I would pick up, I would try to like make it thing. Like I'd start knitting and then I'd be like, let me make a knitting Instagram and let me like knit a whole sweater every month and like let me, like I just go really hard on everything. And so with writing, I started writing this novel in 9th grade, and for some reason I was so committed to that, and I don't know where that came from. I've always read a lot as well. I don't know, it's always just been something that has come very naturally to me, and because I went so hard on everything I did, and when you go so hard on so many things, you really like notice and become aware of all of the aspects of them. So like when I went really hard into knitting, this is so nerdy, I began to realize like that knitting is more of a hobby because I didn't love every part of it. I didn't find it as satisfying. It didn't come naturally to me at all. Like the math of it, I just couldn't, like I still knit, but I'm not like a hardcore knitter, you know? Other things I've picked up over the years, like chess. Like I'll play a game of chess. I know a few openings, but like when I tried to go super hard into it, it didn't come naturally. It's not something I'm interested in right now. And I think when I did that with writing, everything came easily. Not easily, like it was difficult, but it was like I knew how to do it instinctively. And I think that's something that you realize when you really dive headfirst into it. And like, I just have never looked back. I've always just been like, okay, time to write the next one. Let's keep going, because it's something that has come so instinctually to me. And I also am just like weirdly determined. Like I want writing to be the thing that I do full time. I like making videos. I like being a videographer, but I want to be doing what comes the most naturally to me all the time. Maybe that's toxic. Comment down below if I'm toxic. Second question from Scarlett. What inspired me to write thrillers? Is that something that's always interested me? That's such a good question because I also don't know. Primarily, I read fantasy, honestly, or I did growing up. Most of the books that got me into reading were fantasy, but I've never wanted to write fantasy. That's such a lie. My first book was like a dystopian fantasy, blah, blah, you know. I liked elements of fantasy, like I liked the danger and I liked the romance and I liked what high stakes does to romance and like all of that, but I was not interested in world building really at all, like building a fantasy world. I'll world build for the characters. And I'd also read a few thrillers. The first idea that I had in college for a book, it just was a thriller, and I've just kind of stuck with that. Like the ideas that I seem to be getting for books are thrillers. I'm not opposed to writing other genres. There needs to be action in it for me, and so I could not write like a contemporary romance. Also because personal update, I've never had like a significant relationship, like romantic relationship. So I don't feel like I'm qualified to write like a pure romance novel or contemporary. Like I guess I've never been involved in a crime either. I also have watched a lot of like Criminal Minds and Castle, and like that is also a genre that I really enjoy. I need to stop touching my hair and I'm so sorry. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of why I write thrillers. And I write adult thrillers specifically because I don't want it to be in a school setting. And I think it's very rare for young adult thrillers for them to not be in school. Like that's just a workaround you have to find, because like why aren't they at school? And I don't love like a summer camp murder. That's just not. I also want to write about people that are the age that I am. Can I stop doing my hair? I need to like flip the viewfinder. Okay, what do my earliest works look like? I'll link that video. I kind of have touched on that a little bit. And then would I ever consider indie publishing? Or am I set on TradPub? So if you're newer, I feel like I talk about this every video, but I am pursuing traditional publishing right now. I've queried one novel. I just started querying a second one. I don't know, I can't predict the future. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel in a few years once I've been querying and maybe burning out from that. Like I don't know how the industry is gonna feel in a couple of years. A lot of people think that TradPub is sinking right now. I don't. I think that in every industry that there's things that I don't love. I think this is gonna be a hot take about traditional publishing. Like there are definitely valid complaints about traditional publishing. Like everyone is entitled to their opinion. I think a lot of the downgrading of traditional publishing right now is because it takes so long. And I think it's more that traditional publishing is just more selective. We're really becoming accustomed right now to like instant gratification and instant, like if I want to do something, I'll just do it. And if I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that, but I think that a lot of the comments that I hear about traditional publishing where it's like, it's so slow, it's outdated, it's really just because it's one thing that you don't get instant gratification from, and that it doesn't care how hard you work. Traditional publishing doesn't care how good you think it is. It cares about other things, and that's brutal. But it is still my goal to be traditionally published. I don't see myself pursuing indie publishing right now, but I also don't know the future. So I'm not gonna say I would never indie publish a book. I'm really just trying for traditional publishing and seeing if patience and serendipity can come through that. I want to make it clear, like, I have nothing but respect for the indie publishing community, and like, it is a lot of work, and it's honestly harder to indie publish. I think the glaring reason for me is that I don't want to be the only avenue to people finding out about my books, you know? And I'm not saying that that's for sure the case for indie published books. I know that there are indie authors who are very successful and I want there to be the possibility that someone who has never heard of me and never come across any of my social media or ads that I specifically place, someone that has never heard of me and doesn't know what I look like or where I am or anything, could find and enjoy my book, and I would never know about them. You know? Like, that's the image that I have, and I know that that's very outlandish. I also would really love to be a part of a team like agent. Like, that partnership is something I really want, not just because it's the only way or one of the only ways to get a traditional book deal. Like, I want it to feel more like a career with a team where I'm not the one making all the decisions. And I know that that's a big reason why a lot of people indie publish, is because they want to make all the decisions, which is great. I have nothing against that. I just think for my career, this is gonna sound really mean, and I don't mean for it to, I really don't. I don't want to be the best person. Like, I don't think I'm the only person who knows what's best for my book. And so I want to be on a part of a team that can like make my book better. And I know that there are editors and like people that you hire and critique partners, and I get that is also part of indie publishing. Ultimately in indie publishing, you are in control. Like, you can still publish the book. I hate, but I also like the idea of having all of these other people to approve it and make sure that it's good before it goes out. That is my thoughts on indie publishing. Please don't hate me. I really do value indie publishing, and I have read tons of indie published books that I love. And I just, from what research I've done in the industry, TradPub is where I'm at right now. So, Anissa is wondering about dictating. Any tips or further insights on dictating? So dictating is how I drafted the first draft of my most recent thriller, going by the alias Project Gas Station. I did in NaNoWriMo, and I have a whole playlist. I did daily vlogs in NaNoWriMo, so feel free to check that out, where you essentially just speak into the microphone. And for me, it has been like truly my truest form as a writer. I come from a theater speech background, if you can't tell. I like love dictating so much. Like, I'm excited to get to a point where I can dictate a new book, because like the way that I have been able to construct scenes and the way that my brain works differently. If you have ever gotten into what you would consider a flow state, where the words are just like going faster than your fingers can type them, and the scene is coming together without you really having to construct it in your head, like it's just coming. I will feel that every once in a while I'm typing. I felt that almost every time I dictated. To be clear, I had outlined the book very, very detailed. Like, I had every scene written out. I didn't have what happened in the scenes, but every scene was outlined before. I outlined for about a month. And then I dictated from the outline. That's one thing with dictating. I would recommend having a more detailed outline so that you know where you're going, because dictating allows you to get words on the page faster, so you have to be able to think ahead a little bit more. But even now, I am reading through that draft, rewriting it essentially right now. It is not as hard as I thought it was gonna be, you guys. I was really nervous about dictating on the back end of things, like how it would work to translate things, but like the scenes themselves are so much stronger than any first draft I've ever written. They look worse and messier and horrible, but I know my voice and I knew what I was trying to say, and like nobody else would be able to translate it, but like the scenes and the conversations and like the structure and the pacing is so much better than anything I have ever written in a first draft before. I don't know, it is my truest form. And it also just let me do it so much faster. I would say tips that I had while doing it was don't look at the page. I would check every once in a while to make sure that it was recording or like dictating, right? But I didn't look at the page. Like I would just like maybe close my eyes or look up or look. I always look insane in all those clips of me dictating. And plan out like right before you start, before you press dictate, like microphone on or whatever, think about exactly what's gonna happen in that scene, or think about like what are like get your headlights on, like where are you going? Because otherwise you can just talk, I don't know. My other thing would be to practice, because it's gonna feel weird. It doesn't feel weird for me because I talk to a camera all the time for this. That would be a recommendation I'd have, is to like just practice a little bit and find a space that you feel comfortable. And maybe like if you live with other people, honestly, I've heard of people dictating in their car, closing the door, blocking out the haters, you know, whatever you have to do. But my biggest tip though is if it doesn't work, don't do it, because dictating is my truest form as a writer, but for most people it's not. So I would recommend trying it just to see, because it made an exponential difference in my writing. In my opinion, no one's read it yet, so maybe it's garbage, but that would be what I have to say about dictating. I don't know. I'm starting to lose my voice. Okay, Anissa also asks, is Save the Cat my main craft book? Any thoughts on other craft books? So craft books, I have really only read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and I've watched pretty much the entirety of YouTube writing tips. Save the Cat is the big one for me. I have an interesting relationship with craft books where I think that sometimes people will read a craft book instead of actually writing the book, feel the need to know everything before you start writing. And while I think that craft books can help in a pinch, or if you're stuck, I don't think you need to read a craft book before you write a book. The only reason I would say Save the Cat is because if you have no idea how to outline, if you have no idea, if you're thinking like, oh, I have a few things I want to happen in the book, I don't know, read Save the Cat. Or as a background to this, I wrote my first two books without any craft novels. The one I wrote in college, which I would consider my first like actual book, it was my first thriller, I wrote without a craft book, and then afterwards I was trying to figure out what was wrong with it because the pacing was horrible. And I read Save the Cat and I was like, okay, that's how you structure a book. I really was against the idea of plot structure before, because I was like, I don't want my book to be the same as everyone else's. It's already gonna be the same as somebody's, sorry. Seeing that structure in Save the Cat actually gave me so much clarity and freedom, because structure is not a prison. It like sets your book free, because it's like, okay, this actually helps me to know where to put things to impact the reader in a certain way. Save the Cat, that beats sheet is what I recommend. Mostly I would say, rather than reading all the craft books in the world, just read more books. Because I was pretty close to an outlined plot structure. I was pretty close to following a plot structure just from reading a bunch of books. Do what you need. Sherry asks, what are some comp titles for my past and present books? I don't know. This is hard. I've been trying to figure it out. For the wedding season, which is what I'm querying right now, I would comp it to, okay, my current comp titles are The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, which is super basic, I know, mostly because it's a character-driven thriller, and there's sort of that like rich people energy, but it's not like it's not a story about rich people, but there's rich people in it in a similar way to The Housemaid, where it's like you're employed by rich people and suspicious things happen. Like that's why it's comped there. My other comp right now is Lucy Foley's The Guest List, just because it takes place in a wedding atmosphere. I'm gonna try a different comps though, because I don't know if that's the best. And then my comp for near the end of June, which is my other like past couple years ago, it was, if you've seen the movie Sliding Doors, yep, it was in that structure, like a what if dual reality structure, which was so bold and ambitious. And I also comped it to In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. It was like a college thriller. And for Gas Station, this is hard to comp actually. I haven't really thought about it. The biggest one is Castle, because the TV show Castle, because it just has vibes. It just has the Castle vibes to it, in my opinion. Not the plot really at all, just the heart of Castle. That is what I'm going for. I also need to just read more thrillers because I don't have a clear other comp right now. It does have rom-com vibes to it. No, this is what I'm comping it to. The Girls I've Been. So that is a YA thriller, but it is a hostage negotiation book, or I'm sorry, not to out myself fully. It is a hostage situation book. There is a bunch of hostage situations in my book because she's a hostage negotiator. Like, that's who the main character is. She's a hostage negotiator. They end up sort of fake dating each other. I don't know. Okay, that's all I'm gonna tell you. But those are the comps. And then, am I using any paid tools to help me query? So if you don't know, should I tell you what querying is? It's when you essentially beg you send like a cover letter of your book. It's called a query letter. And usually the first 5 or 10 pages, and sometimes a synopsis and a little bit of info about you, to literary agents, and then usually they reject you, or sometimes they ask you for more pages. Am I using any paid tools? I have the paid version of Query Tracker, which is like $25 a year. I think it's worth it just because you can see all the data, but Sherry mentioned in her comment she doesn't get the paid version because all the extra data stresses her out. And I just think it depends on what your relationship to data is. I like to be able to get optimistic by looking at the data and being like, oh, they skipped over mine. Maybe I'm in a maybe pile. I like to see, and also seeing those numbers is very grounding for me, and it makes the queries feel a lot less personal. You can just see more details. I don't really know what the non-paid version of Query Tracker looks like because I've never used it. But with the paid one, you can see the top 10 agents who request the most, and you can see when did people submit queries and when did they get a response and what was the response and what is the percentage and all of that data. So it just depends on what data makes you feel. I don't have anything like Publishers Marketplace or anything else. I might get it though. I've been debating that one. So let me know if you use Publishers Marketplace, if you're paying for it. It's ridiculously expensive, but just let me know if it's helpful. So, okay. And then Madeline asks, what are my favorite books? Madeline, I don't know. Okay. My favorite books right now, as of this moment, which is not my favorite books of all time, but books that come to mind are Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which I just read a few weeks ago, so that might change its rating as time goes on. That book was so good. That book is exactly what I mean when I say I want a rom-com with something else in it, like something deep. So good, I cried. Okay. Lynette Noni, anything by Lynette Noni, specifically the Prison Healer trilogy, I need you to read it, and if you don't like it, that's okay, but we don't have the same reading taste. And then what else do I like? I feel like I've read a lot of books that I like recently. Truly anything by Abby Jimenez or Catherine Center. If you really want to know some of my favorite books, watch this video. It's like my lowest performing video ever, but I love it. It's books to read on your period. And it's pretty much just all my favorite books. I break it down in that one, and just give it a watch. I think it's fun. It's just some book recommendations. What influenced me to start writing? So there's like I was saying earlier, I've always just kind of wanted to, but I have this distinct memory of reading The Hunger Games in middle school, and I read the 3rd book and I was like, no. And so I started writing it again because I didn't like what happened to Peeta in that book. I'm still upset about it to this day, 10 years later. Is that 10 years ago? Oh my gosh, I'm old. I'm really not. And I wanted to write a trilogy where the 3rd book didn't frustrate the heck out of me because that was the Divergent era. We don't need to talk about it, okay? So it was actually from this, I enjoy consuming this kind of content a lot and I want to make my own. I did once dabble with some fan fiction, not very significantly, except in college. I wrote 70 pages of A Keeper of the Lost Cities fan fiction. It was good. I'm gonna stand by that work. It might be recycled into my work today. I feel like that's all the questions on here. Oh, another question I've been asked recently is do I have anything published right now? No. I mean, legally, yes. I've made a couple short films that I've written, and so technically that's published, and I have a short story in a local anthology that's technically published, but you can't buy it anywhere, I don't think. It was very like, everybody who submits gets in kind of a situation. I think maybe not. Maybe I'm making that up. I also have an audio drama that I wrote, and it is on Spotify. I'm not revealing the name. So nothing published yet. Holding out hope. But I have written 4 novels. One of them is just in a draft form, but 3 completed, edited, polished, for the most part, novels. Yikes, that's a lot. Okay, another thing I'll do just at the end of this video is kind of give you a guide if you're newer of maybe some older content that you want to watch. So I have a lot of playlists on my channel. One of them is called Project Groove, and that's every video. It's like over the course of the last year, finishing my first draft and going through 2 or 3 revisions and getting it ready for query and going to a literary agent conference. It was a writer's conference, you know what I mean? And getting that ready for querying. That is all in a playlist called Project Groove. There is a playlist called New WIP, but I'm gonna update that to say gas station. So that would be every video from outlining, and then not every video from NaNoWriMo, pretty much any video where I talked about the book specifically is all in that playlist. So if you want to see like the writing process in a more complete way from me, that might be a good place to start. I also did daily vlogs in NaNoWriMo. That's a good place to just start getting the vibes if you're newer and you need just kind of a bunch of content. It's not really themed holiday-y or anything. It's just like dictating the book for every day of November. I think I missed like 1 day or something, but there's 30 videos in that playlist. So that's a good place to start. I also did a revision challenge. Those videos are weird because it was just a weird time. But it's like 6 videos where I was trying to finish a revision on Groove. I also have a playlist called The Creativity Lab, which is a lot of older videos, but also I've only been on YouTube for a year, so they're not that old. And they're like, I did a lot of experimental videos at the beginning of this channel. I don't really do that anymore. It's mostly just writing vlogs. But it's like, I did some tier ranking videos, and I did some like challenging AI to a writing contest. Comment down below if you are here from that video, because that was my first video that like spiked up. It's still my most viewed video actually. It's not really reflective of any of the content that I make now, but it's at like 8,000 views. It's crazy. And I got like 200 subscribers from it in a day. It was wild. So let me know if you're here from that video last year around this time. And then I also have a playlist called Let's Talk Writing, which is pretty much all of my monthly, no, I also have a playlist about my monthly wrap-ups where I just kind of talk about the books that I read that month. So if you want like reading content, I don't know, you're probably not here for that. But Let's Talk Writing is pretty much any like podcasty type of episode of videos. So the one that came out a couple days ago where I'm just essentially talking for 30 minutes, anything where it's mainly talking about a topic, that's where that playlist is as well. So if you're looking to go back and kind of start at a different point, that's where I would say I've been talking for 41 minutes. Yeah, let me know if you have any more questions. I could do another Q&A. I don't know, but thank you again so much for 1,000 subscribers. If you're not subscribed already, you know what to do. If you've watched this part of the video, like, you're committed. So you might as well subscribe. Also, if you've made it this far in the video, comment down below which video you subscribed on. I can't really tell from the data, it's kind of skewed, or what made you subscribe. I'm actually super interested in that because I've had a few videos that have kind of spiked up in views that got me a lot of subscribers, but also I just don't really know. So comment down below why you subscribed. That seems like a really vain question to ask. Why did you like me so much that you subscribed? Or if you don't want to do that, just comment down below a red heart, okay? Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.